When you go to the beach, you're likely to find a lot of tiny organisms in the shallow water, and maybe even in the sand. Like an assortment of fish, probably some isopods and crabs, and maybe even a squid. The shallow part of the waters is abundant with life and resources for these organisms to eat and thrive, so it is to be expected that there would be a lot of them here. One notable characteristic that incorporates a lot of these shallow water sea creatures is that they're all pretty small. They're small enough to where you can pick them up in your hand. But what may not be so obvious about these organisms is they have a giant secret. A gigantism secret. While these creatures in the shallow are pretty small, just a few hundred meters deep into the ocean, their relatives can grow 17 times their size. Deep inside the ocean, in some of the most extreme environments on the entire planet, these places thrive with life. Temperatures can range from 1 degree Celsius in colder areas all the way up to a boiling 190 degrees Celsius near the hydrothermal vents. In a place where no light means no photosynthesis for food, and food is usually falling leftovers from another fish's meal. How could something survive in a habitat with pressures strong enough to bend aircraft like soda cans? And why are some of them gigantic? Biologists have discovered an evolutionary phenomenon called deep sea gigantism, which is why animals in the deep tend to be so huge in comparison to their relatives in shallow waters. My favorite organism, the Bathynomus giganteus, or giant isopod, is a prime example of this deep sea gigantism, and this video is kind of an excuse to talk about them because they're cute and I like them. Isopoda is an order of crustaceans, which means they're related to crabs and shrimp, and isopods are found all over the planet, on land, in saltwater, and in freshwater. These silly little guys love to crawl around and eat whatever they find laying on the ground. Some are even parasites, which is pretty cool. I could make an entire video about isopods, but I'll have to do that another time because most of them are small, and this video is about big things. The coolest isopod is the giant isopod. While many isopod species can grow less than a full inch, the giant isopod can reach an astounding size of 16 inches. That's big enough to carry with 2 hands. Some people have reported a giant isopod that was 30 inches, but the largest confirmed specimen was 20 inches. They've been found living in the Gulf of Mexico region and also the Indo-Pacific Ocean region, at depths of 7,000 feet, but some species of giant isopod have been found at shallower depths of 900 feet. But that's still really deep. At these crushing depths, it's hard to believe anything could live down there, but they certainly do. An interesting thing about the giant isopod is that usually when fish at those depths are brought up to the surface, they die and change shape due to the drastic change in pressure. Like the blobfish, who looks like a fish usually until you bring it up, making it a blob. But not the giant isopod. Because of its tough and segmented exoskeleton, and that they don't have swim bladders or lungs filled with gas, they can handle being in unpressurized environments for short periods of time. Some places, like the Monterey Bay Aquarium, even let you pet them, which is really cool. I want to pet one. However, due to their natural habitat having a temperature of around 10 degrees Celsius, they can quickly die if temperatures change too drastically. Because of how big they are in comparison to their smaller relatives, they are a great example of deep sea gigantism. Moving on from the giant isopod, another colossal sea creature is the Japanese spider crab. These organisms can reach lengths of 12 feet, so they're longer than a school bus is tall. I don't even think they'd be able to fit in my bedroom. These silly little guys live in Japan, obviously, and they change which depth they live at throughout their life cycle. They can lay a jaw-dropping 1.5 million eggs per mating season, which is more eggs than there are people in some small countries. They are really tiny eggs though, and when they hatch, they turn into a planktonic larvae. These crabs are, in fact, true crabs, and not just some convergent crabs like many other organisms called crabs like the hermit crab, which isn't a crab, or the horseshoe crab, which isn't a crab either. This means, because they are real crabs, that they are closely related to a bunch of small species, like the cute Atlantic ghost crab. So why are these guys so ginormous in such cold and crushing places? Well, after the next and probably most terrifying species, we can try and figure out what makes these extremophiles grow so large. Probably the largest and most popular example of deep sea gigantism is the giant squid. This is definitely the most well-known organism on this list because of its prevalence throughout human history. Aristotle wrote of large squids, differentiating them from smaller squids, and tales of massive monsters resembling a squid attacking boats have been passed on through generations. However, many of these sightings were not confirmed and are theorized to not be of living giant squids. It took a very long time to get the first ever footage of a giant squid, and the first photograph was in 2004. Later in 2006, one was captured live and videographed. Because of the environment that they live in, it's very difficult to find living giant squid. They don't often go to the surface, and when they do, they're usually young or injured. Because the giant squid is an ambush predator, they often avoid lights and noises that submarines make, which makes it difficult to capture one on video. This means that most of the knowledge that we have comes from washed up parts of them on shore. We have also found marks on many large whales, such as sperm whales, so we can conclude that their diet includes these megafauna. These squid live at astonishing depths, spanning from 1,000 to 3,000 feet deep, and even more astounding is that the size of these squids, with some reaching 43 feet long and weighing 600 pounds. It definitely makes sense now why they're able to fight sperm whales and win. So why do the crushing depths of the sea turn these little guys into colossal creatures? Biologists are still researching exactly why these organisms tend to reach astounding sizes, but it seems to boil down to two main factors. Generally in the water, organisms are able to be larger than on land because they are much less affected by the pulling of gravity. This can be clearly seen with species like the blue whale, which isn't just the largest animal on the planet, it's the largest animal to have ever been on the planet. The ocean simply allows things to get bigger than they possibly could on land, but wouldn't the crushing pressures encourage these creatures to stay small, or get even smaller? Well, actually, it seems to be advantageous for these creatures to become larger than their relatives as they reach deeper depths. One of the reasons for this advantage is the fact that when you're bigger, you can stay warmer. When an organism gets bigger, its surface area shrinks in comparison to its volume, making it more heat efficient. Since the surface area is where all the heat is leaving, if you can minimize that in a place with almost freezing temperatures, it's a good idea. These organisms are also able to hold in fat for later usage that way. By being bigger, you have more room to store leftovers, and in a place where a meal is scarce, it's crucial to save some for later. Going back to the giant isopod for a second, they are so good at saving food for later that they can go years without having a single meal as long as they ate something first. There are reported cases of them going 4 or 5 years without eating, and when they do die, they don't die of starvation. They simply die of old age. In the deep, it's common for the main food source to be whale falls or dead fish, so it's important to eat as much as possible and then go on your way, especially for these cute little scavengers. The other main factor that contributes to deep sea gigantism is that when you're bigger, it's easier to walk around and find food laying on the ground than when you're small. This, combined with higher storage and lower metabolic rate, makes these organisms very efficient at finding, storing, and using all the energy they can to not freeze. Gigantism is pretty common amongst organisms in the cold. There's also Arctic gigantism, which affects many other organisms as well. I really think deep sea gigantism is my favorite one though. Maybe I'll cover another form of gigantism in another video. Anyways, that's all I have to talk about today. Thank you for watching, and you should go check out my Twitch. Sandwiches is swag. And I really like this video, so I'm probably gonna make more like it. Thank you, bye!